We make things. We use our hands, minds, and machines to build, to fix, to improve. We're known as do-it-yourselfers, home improvement fans, fix-it fanatics, inventors. At our core, though, we're all makers. So let's jump in and make something. Hi, I'm Ron Hazelton. Welcome to the show. Well, if you're a dog lover or know someone who is, you've got to love this show. It's all about making your pets happy and safe. From a below-ground fence to a two-room doghouse with all the comforts of home, this episode of House Calls is going to the dogs. Well, they say good fences make good neighbors, and I gotta think that's especially true if you've got dogs like I do. And if that fence is invisible, I gotta think it makes even better neighbors.
Hi, my name's Woody. The city is where my pal Sammy and I grew up, 22 stories up to be exact. Now the view was fine, but the outdoor space was a little cramped, and we never ventured into the concrete jungle without leashes. Sometimes it got to be just too much. And when we did find grass, well, it usually wasn't dog-friendly. But the move here to the country changed all that. Ah, freedom, wide open spaces, the smell and feel of turf, and room to run, run, run. And with all this space to explore, why should we stop at a stone wall? Ron, though, says we need to have boundaries, so he's called Todd Brown over. Something about a fence that won't be seen. Right now, they're talking about where it should go.
This is where all the ticks are.
What's the issue with ticks?
Well, the ticks actually will migrate out from the wood line at least 5 or 6 feet.
At least
They're
5.
more
From where the
in
grass
woods,
stops.
from where the grass ends and
All
the
right,
woods
so let's
begin.
just put it like under the tree line right here. That's a good 5 feet.
If the dogs get ticks, you're going to the vet.
Well, with the tick question settled, Todd explains how the fence works. A small wire will be buried in the ground and a radio signal transmitted from it. The dogs will wear receivers on their collars. As they approach the buried wire, they'll first hear a sound, then feel a mild correction, like a static shock, that will cause them to turn back. Our first step is to draw up a plan. Now, the backyard is large, so Todd suggests separating it from the front with 2 sharp bends, or dog legs, if you will.
And the only way that the dogs can get from one to the other is through the breezeway here if we leave the gate open.
That's right.
You know, I'm not real sure I want to do the dog legs. I kind of like the idea of just a perimeter all the way around the outside.
Wait, these dogs are coming from a 1,000 square foot New York City apartment. Believe me, they'll have more than enough room.
Okay.
Okay?
I'll fight in a different battle.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, with that resolved, our next step is to temporarily mark the fence location with flags. These will indicate where the cable is to be buried and will also show the dogs where the fence is during their initial training. The actual cable laying is done with this specialized piece of equipment. It cuts a slot into the ground and then lays in the cable all in one operation. The process is surprisingly fast. In our case, we bury over 1,000 feet of wire in less than half an hour. Until...
This is one heck of a machine.
Sure
It's
is.
not going to get through that, though.
No, it will not get through that.
So what do we do here?
You can rent a saw from your local tool rental place.
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
How are you?
Good.
Ron.
Mike, nice to meet you.
Chris, good to meet you. I got a ton of tools, guys, but I don't have, I got to cut a slot across an asphalt driveway, so I need some kind of a saw that'll cut through there. You got something that'll work?
We certainly do. And this will be it right here.
So just roll this along on the wheels then?
Exactly.
Now what'll I need for a blade here?
You probably want to go with a 14-inch masonry blade. One of these will do you fine.
Okay, all right. What's step one?
Well, we need to snap a chalk line. If you want.
Go ahead and snap.
Stretch this wire out right down here. Yep.
Okay.
pack the wire down into the slot, and then we use the sealer, and you can overfill it just a little bit so that the caulk comes just over the top.
For the most part, we've been able to lay the underground fence as one continuous piece of wire. However, there are a couple of places where we'll need to make splices.
We'll just take the 2 wires. I'm going to strip off about 3/4 of an inch of the jacket. Now this splice here has a gel in it that doesn't harden.
It looks like almost like a petroleum jelly in there.
Yeah, fill a little of this.
Our underground fence now lies completely buried around the edge of the lawn, invisible except for the marker flags. Our next step is to bore a hole in the garage wall and bring the ends of the wires inside where we'll connect them to the transmitter.
Okay, see it, Todd? Got it?
This transmitter emits a radio signal that travels along the buried wire. First, we install a screw and mount the unit to the wall. Then attach the ends of the wire loop to the terminals.
We'll just staple these in here. We use an arched staple for cable tacking.
All right, so now there's still no power to this yet, right?
Yeah, we have our AC adapter here. This will step everything down. Now we've got 2 indicator lights on here. We've got a power light that lets us know that everything is on and working, and we have a loop indicator that tells us that the loop is continuous all the way around.
Well, the power is on and the indicators say the fence is working. But before I slip the receiver collars on the dogs, I decide to check out the correction myself.
All right, can I try?
Sure.
Can I actually feel it?
Yeah, it can.
I hate getting shocked.
Stand right there.
Ah! You know, it didn't hurt. It just surprised me.
It's enough to get your attention.
Yeah. I was like, hey, 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 you know? And that's what it's supposed to do, right?
That's correct. Now that everything's installed, we can start the training.
Is it going to be unpleasant for her?
Not generally. When we do the training,
The prongs don't poke into her neck?
they don't. They rest on the surface. We're going to give Sammy just the opportunity to hear the tone, and as we approach, should start hearing the beep. She's hearing the beeping.
She's looking around.
Good girl, Sammy. Good girl.
Good girl, Sam.
Yay.
Did she turn around because she heard the beep?
She heard the beep. She got into a little bit of the correction and started to back away. Although it probably wasn't evident to you, I saw her turn her head a little bit as she approached the boundary. Once it starts correcting, at the low levels, you can almost not even feel it. It's like feeling static shock off of like a doorknob in the wintertime, but much milder than that.
Well, Sammy gets high marks for her first lesson. Now it's Woody's turn.
I'll walk him up. He should be hearing the beeping right about here.
I hear the beep.
He's getting the correction. Good boy, Woody.
Yay!
Good boy,
Good
Woody. Things happen differently with every dog, and sometimes we can make adjustments on the fly.
He's pushing me to the
No, I'm not. I want you to get closer to Todd. I have a better shot here.
There you go. You have to go there for the big flag.
You have a collar on. This dog learns so much more quickly than somebody else in our family.
You know, making resolutions is easy. It's carrying them out that often trips us up. And that sure can be the case when it comes to closet organization. Well, today's house call will take out the trepidation and hesitation.
Charles and Amy Trusty live in a suburban area here with sons Zach and Zane and their family pet, Sebastian. Hardly out of the puppy stage, Sebastian is growing too rambunctious to spend long hours inside the house. So today, I'm going to help the Trusties build Sebastian a sturdy home of his own.
Hey, Sebastian, what a good boy. He's a border collie, right?
Yeah, sure is.
And they really like to run, don't they?
Yes, he has a lot of energy, and that's why we're wanting to make him an outside dog.
Well, he's got a great backyard here. Where were you thinking about putting the doghouse?
Up here against the back of the house.
A couple things I want to keep in mind as we design this. We want to make it large enough so that he's not cramped. He has plenty of room to move around in there, but small enough so that it will contain his body heat and keep him warm in cooler weather.
To figure out the right dimensions, I need to take some measurements. And measuring a border collie is a challenging task.
Come here. Come on, it won't hurt you. Just a tape measure. Here, Sebastian, look.
According to the American Humane Society, the height of a doghouse should be the height of the dog plus 9 inches. The length should be the dog's length plus 18 inches. And the width, his length plus 12 inches. Length 32.
All right.
Boy, okay, 32 by 22.
My plans call for a cozy, insulated two-room house that will permit Sebastian to see outside or to be completely sheltered. We'll add a slanted roof for rain runoff.
So here we've got all the pieces for the frame base. Now this is pressure treated lumber because it's going to be in direct contact with the ground. One thing to keep in mind though when you're building pet structures is you don't want the pets to come in contact with pressure treated lumber. Not healthy for them. So this is all going to be covered over. Sebastian won't touch this, but it will keep this from rotting out because it's sitting on the ground.
Amy drills clearance holes for 3-inch rust-resistant deck screws, which will hold the frame together. Now we're ready to cut several sheets of plywood, which will be used for the floor, roof, and walls.
Amy, I bet you haven't used a circular saw.
I have never
used it. Why do I have a feeling? You've never used it, okay.
It looks a little intimidating.
Yeah?
Yes.
It is. No, it's not. It's really not. Come over here. Come over here. Main thing is let gravity do part of the work here. The base of this, just let it sit on top of the plywood. All you have to do is push this through and apply just some gentle pressure up against this straight edge.
Amy cuts as far as she can reach, then hands off to Charles to complete the cut. In order to have a slanted roof, our sidewalls must be angled at the top. To accomplish this, I've clamped the straight edge at the desired angle. Amy and Charles once again use the circular saw to make the cut. With all our plywood panels trimmed to size, it's time to assemble the doghouse. We start with the floor.
Well, the question is, does it fit?
Seems to fit.
Oh, looks good.
Looks pretty good.
To attach the floor to the base, Amy drills pilot holes about every 10 inches, and Charles follows behind, driving in screws.
Now this is what you call a doghouse raisin. Wall number 2. Now these L-shaped pieces that you guys put together, I want to put right in here, just like this.
We've assembled these corner braces by screwing a couple of 2x4s together. We'll first attach the braces to the sidewalls, then fasten the front and back walls to the braces. These corner braces will reinforce the walls and block drafts from blowing through. With Charles and Amy busy putting up the exterior walls, I'm installing a frame for the interior partition. We attach a plywood skin to the frame and a support post. Then, just as the doghouse begins to take shape, threatening storm clouds roll in, followed by a true Midwest thunderstorm.
So we've moved in here in the garage, and actually this is not a bad time to put this down off the table and onto the floor. It's probably going to be easier to reach it this way. I've also added a couple of braces here, here, and here. Now we're ready to put our insulation in. We're going to be using this. This is rigid foam insulation. We've actually glued 2 pieces together, a 1-inch piece and a 1/2-inch piece. And we're going to start by dropping this right inside our frames. So just grab something over there that looks like it might fit, and we'll see if indeed it does.
It's like putting a puzzle together.
Yeah, this is.
I got the wrong piece. Let's try this.
Next, we cover the insulation with 1/4-inch plywood panels.
Keep Sebastian from snacking on that insulation. All right, why don't we start right here, Charles?
Okay.
Right here. Amy, right here, and then kind of work your way down. Telling you, it's feeling snug as a bug in here right now. Let's start at the bottom, guys.
Okay.
So do you think Sebastian's going to be happy in here?
Well, if Sebastian isn't, I'm sure our 4-year-old will be.
You know, that thought occurred to me. It's almost a playhouse. If it was much bigger. All right. You know, could we call Sebastian for just a second?
Sure.
I wanted to consult with him about this.
Hey.
Hey, buds. Listen, I want to decide how to make your door. So, what do you think? I'm thinking like something maybe just above your back right here. Would this be okay up here? And up here? Would this be all right?
Yes. Oh, that's nice.
Okay. He says yes.
All right, great.
With Sebastian's specifications outlined on the wall, Amy cuts the doorway out with a jigsaw. and we screw the final wall section into place. Next, the roof goes on. We allow a slight overhang to keep rain runoff away from the walls. Then cover the plywood with water-resistant roofing felt or tar paper, which we attach with staple tackers. We also add a drip cap along the edges of the roof. This L-shaped piece of metal prevents water from seeping under the shingles and into the edge of the plywood.
All right, time to do a little shingling now.
Finally, we nail our shingles into place, starting at the bottom and overlapping each row.
Well done. Well, the rain stopped and we've moved the doghouse out in the yard where it's going to live. And we've added a hinge along the rear edge of the roof. The reason for that is it makes it real easy to clean by simply lifting up the front edge like this. Well, Charles, I think we did a pretty good job.
Looks great to me.
But actually, we're not the ones who are going to live in here, so I think we ought to ask the guy who is. Hey,
Okay.
Sebastian,
Come here, boy.
want to try this
Ooh,
out?
boy.
How about a little
Look at
food?
this.
Just sort of a, yeah,
Look at
yeah,
that.
a welcoming dinner in there. How
What
about
do you
that?
think?
To make having dinner in your new house. Well, guys, it was fun. I
Oh.
enjoyed working with you.
We
You
had
were
a
great
great-
with the tools,
Thanks. We had a great time.
Excellent time.
and I think he's going to like the new house.
He definitely
will.
will.
And just remember, if you have to go to the doghouse now, well, it's not such a bad deal.
Nope.
Now, if you've got to drill several holes to exactly the same depth, here are 3 simple depth gauges you can make from things you'll find right around the shop. Technique number 1 calls for tape. Now, you can use just about any kind, but I like something, well, cheery. I wrap the tape around my drill bit at the depth I want the hole. Then go ahead and drill, stopping when the edge of the tape reaches the surface. Now, it is possible to over-drill using tape, so here's a method that will prevent that. Hold a piece of 3/4 inch dowel with a pair of multi-groove pliers and drill a hole through the center. Trim the dowel to the length you need it and slip it over the bit. Now, when you reach your desired depth, the drill will stop on its own. And finally, take a piece of copper electrical wire, insert one end into the drill chuck, and begin wrapping it around the bit in a clockwise direction. Now remember, clockwise as you face the drill. When you've wrapped the wire you need, use a pair of needle nose pliers to tuck the end in place. When you drill, you'll have both a visual and mechanical stop. I picked this up from the folks at the Airstream trailer plant. Hey, thanks, guys. Well, there you have it. 3 simple ways to make depth gauges for your drill: tape, stop block, or wire.
To view today's projects again and countless more, go to HouseCallsDIY.com. Step-by-step home improvement tips when you need them.
I'm Brian Kelsey. Welcome to House Calls.
Join us as we tackle some great home projects, as well as look back at favorites from Ron Hazelton on House Calls.